So Edwin, you presented during the course of today's Maritime Hydrogen and Fuel Cells Conference, but very interesting project destined to take place at a yard that's very much in the news.
Shouldn't say too much about that, but we're hoping that Ferguson's will continue with the HySeas 3 project in some form, but we're waiting for the outcome of that.
I think you do need to say a little bit more about what's going on at Ferguson.
It's all in the news, so Ferguson's are in administration, and we're awaiting for the end of the administration, which should take place sometime next week, to figure out if there's a buyer or if the Scottish Government will nationalise it. We don't really know very much about what will happen to the HySeas 3 project, but we hope that it will continue in some form. There's recognition that it is important and innovative, and would play a major part in Scotland's decarbonisation strategy for their ferries.
Now, you mentioned that the project is innovative, and in fact it proposes a number of industry firsts.
Yes, so it will be one of the first ro-ro vehicle ferries in operation with fuel cells. The hydrogen storage will be below deck, and it will be probably one of the first operating entirely on renewable hydrogen with no other backup.
What are the implications from an environmental and also a cost perspective?
From the cost perspective, certainly we think that OPEX in terms of the fuel will be a lot more certain and stable, because we should know the cost, since it's based on renewable energy and not on the market price of oil. What that cost will be isn't finalized yet, because it really depends on the landside infrastructure, but certainly we're hoping that with further optimization to the landside infrastructure and renewable energy infrastructure, that OPEX may be as cheap as, or perhaps even better than, MGO.
Now, one of the concluding questions at the HySeas conference referred to a notional $100 million and the idea that you were mandated to invest it in a way that would support the further development and progress of maritime hydrogen and fuel cells. How did you choose to invest your notional $100 million?
I divided the 100 million to two parts. One, I would invest in landside infrastructure, primarily renewable energy, electrolyzers to produce the hydrogen, and some form of hydrogen storage. And with that, demand would come and we'd be able to sell the hydrogen on. The other part, I would invest in trying to figure out how we would retrofit zero-emission technology that involves hydrogen in some form, be that fuel cells or in an internal combustion engine.
Now, we're talking at the end of the day, at the end of the first Maritime Hydrogen and Fuel Cells Conference. It's still very buzzy. People are hanging around, they're having conversations, they're networking, they're pre-registering for the event that will take place across the next 2 days. But how have you found this year's Maritime Hydrogen and Fuel Cells Conference?
I found it very, very informative. There's been a very wide cross-section of perspectives from all the projects, past and present, and lots of detailed sort of information as well from ship designers, which were very, very useful. And so all in all, I've learned a lot, and I would highly recommend this.